Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Your weekly dose of news and advice that comes to your pocket every single Saturday. Holding it down, here we got Mack, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Enjoy today's show. Yes, your host is back. I know you missed this voice. It's your boy Mack, holding it down with the whole crew, the whole SMS crew, coming to you live on the video. We got Mark, Landon, Scott, and Mack. Ready here to kick it down with you, episode 74. We're talking week 6 today. Man, I'm on the edge with a couple players. I need to be talked off. We're talking about some backfields that you may or may not want to target going into the rest of season, the ROS, and we're giving you some bold predictions for the remainder of the year. Maybe Lamar Jackson's name will come up. Maybe Cooper Kupp. I'm not sure. But listen, I'm going to flip it into the rest of the crew. Guys, how are you doing with this Canadian Thanksgiving coming up upon us?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope everyone has had a great fantasy season so far, but I want you to hear from me specifically. Your season is not over. It's not the time to fire sale. You can come back from 1-4, even 0-5.
I've seen 0-5.
0-5 come back,
Yeah,
sneak in the playoffs, and hopefully some bold predictions we start saying today will come true and will get you into the playoffs. Scotty, Marky, who wants to go first? How you guys doing, my man?
Oh man, I'm psyched. You know what? As you guys alluded to, it's that magical time of the season where players start panicking, fire sales start happening, but it is a long season, and all it takes in fantasy is one player going down, and a team who's at the top of the league is trying to pick their way back up waiver wire wise, and it's my favorite time of the year for that.
Yeah, I feel like I've been getting hit with like these really like contrasting feelings every Monday, coming in and out of these fantasy ups and downs, and honestly, it's pretty hard to wrangle because this has been a crazy season, and I think it's just going to keep getting crazier and crazier. But so far, it's been super fun, and I mean. Everyone's just been saying lately, if you want any kind of luck in fantasy or if you want any kind of good performance, you got to tune into the SMS, right?
That's what they say, right?
I have heard that around
what the word on the
That's all
street
anyone
is.
is saying.
Listen, it is a beautiful Saturday, October 12th right now in Canada. We have our Thanksgiving Monday coming up. To our neighbors in the South, we don't do Thanksgiving like you guys do. We don't get a full week off. I wish we did, but it's a Friday, Monday extravaganza for us. So happy Thanksgiving to our Canadian listeners, and we will be sure to give a happy Thanksgiving in November to our American listeners. But listen, wherever you guys are, however you may be listening or watching, we're glad to have you here with us. So I'm going to flip this one over to Landon before we jump into some news. Landon's got a little fun exercise for us having to do with wide receiver 2s that outplayed their respective wide receiver 1s. I haven't done any homework on this. I'm just going to go, I think the rest of the boys too, just on what we saw last week. So Landon, go ahead.
Yeah,
pal.
so obviously, if you remember, it just happened, that last week we had a big turnaround where wide receiver 2s outperformed their so-called respective 1s on their teams. So I've got 9 here. So I'm gonna put it to you guys how many all of you can name that outperformed their 1s. So take it away, anyone, whoever has it.
All right, first one's simple. Will
Number
Fuller
1 wide receiver.
over DeAndre Hopkins.
Over Hopkins, you got her.
Second one is
Okay.
Cortland Sutton over Manny Sanders.
Oh, that's a good one, Marky. I like that.
Hey,
How
it's
about
easy.
Chris? How about Chris?
Oh, that's a good one. I that one wouldn't have came to me
coming
right
over
away.
Mike Evans, who laid a nice 0 for all of us Mike
Chris
Evans
Godwin,
owners.
that's an easy one. Yep.
That's right. That's why I wear the jersey, folks.
I mean, who do you think is the one in LA? Like, that is kind of up for grabs.
That does count, though. Cooper Kupp outperformed both Woods
Okay.
and
Oh,
Okay.
please.
So that's-
He's the one.
That's kind of where I was
I'd
going
say,
with
You
it.
know what? If
Oh,
I had to make that
now
pick
he
right
is.
now this season, Cooper Kupp is the number one in LA, and the other two are just chasing, fighting for scraps.
That's it. That's it. All right. What else you got? There's another obvious one too, I think.
I mean, can you pick any Green Bay Packer because Devontae Adams didn't
Doesn't
play?
count. That could be the 10.
Does that
could be
count?
The cheater 10 one.
Jarvis Landry over Odell
There you
Beckham
go. There's
Jr.
another one. Yep.
Pretty sure the water boy finished over
Okay.
Odell Beckham.
I finished over Odell Beckham Jr. That's for damn sure. I didn't fumble anything this weekend.
You got more?
What else do we got here? Mike Williams over
Got it.
Keenan
That's
Allen.
another one.
Yes.
Okay, boom. Who's the number one in San Fran?
Debo?
I don't think there
I
really is one.
didn't. So I've got 8.
That one probably
I missed,
isn't on
I
the
thought
list.
Gallup would outperform Cooper, but Cooper finished really good. So
Yeah,
that's
Lando. Cooper
No,
had a
correct.
game.
Yeah, he did. But so did Gallup. Gallup's
They
been
did.
a stud.
Yeah, love him right now.
Okay, there's
Who else is on this list? I feel like we
two
did a pretty
left.
decent
One
job.
is super obvious. As like
Super
a
obvious.
number one wide receiver in the league, possibly the number one wide receiver.
Oh, Calvin Ridley outdid Julio Jones.
Over
got it.
Julio.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last
good
one,
call.
and
Yep.
this is a tough one because you're not sure who the. To start the year, D.D. Westbrook was the number one, and DJ Chark has been an absolute stud. Chark is now the number
Correct.
one in that offense. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but DJ Chark is a top 10 fantasy wide receiver right now. Like that is wild and really pisses me off because I held him in fantasy dynasty all last year and then decided he would be one of my 5 drops. And
Man, that's reminiscent of me
Here we are.
holding James Conner all year, our first year when he was still a rookie, and then I dropped
Yep.
him right before Lev Bell decided to hold out the season. So
That's
I
right.
feel your pain, man.
That's a good game, though, Landon.
Speaking of
So who-
James Conner, Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, he had what was it? MCL?
He is going to be out for a full
Right.
month. So, like, now when you think about James Conner, whether you were hesitant on him before or whether you were high on him, man, like, I think the narrative to sell James Conner is at an all-time high. He's just coming off back-to-back decent weeks. Man, like, there's no competition for him anymore. The narrative for this guy could not be better. So if you are in the market to trade James Conner, go ahead and do it ASAP. If you feel like James Conner could be relevant for, the next couple weeks, there's no better time to have any confidence or faith in James Conner. So
Benny Smells.
He's worth a
No.
stash, I think,
No.
now that he's the only backup. But
You loved Benny Snell coming into the season, Mac.
I did.
no, I didn't.
One of you
I
guys
did.
did. What do you?
He was
Yeah,
one of
not me.
Landon's deep
Check.
dives.
Check
Okay,
the
Quick
tape.
question though, before we carry on from these wide
Yeah.
receivers, which of that list is actually the number one now in their respective offenses, and which is just a mirage?
DJ Chark is
That's an easy
legitimately
one.
the number one
and then
for
Cooper
Jacksonville.
Kupp has to be the number one in that offense as well.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He's the wide receiver to own.
Cooper
on
Kupp
the
could be the
Rams.
number one in fantasy.
Godwin, arguably.
I'm not ready to
I would
say
say
that
yes.
just yet, but
No, we'll have.
Oh,
we'll
I
have
am.
more
know
to
you
talk
guys
about
are.
Chris Godwin a little later, I think, for sure.
Listen, I've been on Chris Godwin since like May,
I know. No, it's been a good call.
maybe even earlier.
Yeah, but
This is my boy. I've seen 2 dud games out of Mike Evans. Like one was a Tim Hortons donut.
he hasn't. But
I'm ready to move on.
If we know anything about that offense right now, it's that one of those 2 guys cannot have 2 bad weeks in a row. They will always come back hot. So I think that's what's going to happen in London this week.
You're right.
And if it doesn't, then I don't know. Maybe I'll get his jersey too.
In London.
Maybe I'll get Evans' jersey too.
There you go.
Yeah. So listen, we have the Jalen Samuels news. Obviously, put some confidence into James Conner in maybe not efficiency, but definitely volume. Saquon Barkley is on the on the wire of being played or not. We're not really sure where that stands right now with him. personally, I don't think you should come back. What are the Giants rushing Saquon Barkley back for? Your schedule isn't good. You're not going to make the playoffs. It doesn't
he's
really
ruled
matter.
out. He's
So
ruled out for
take your
Thursday
time.
already. Yeah.
Is he? Okay. All right. So that's good. But I still think, like, why try to rush him back by week 7, week 8 even? Let the guy rest. If he requires 4 weeks, give him 6. Like, why are you rushing back your future?
Oh, I
Doesn't make
agree,
sense.
and I've said I think this really comes down to the medical and coaching staff trying to basically physically restrain the guy from getting on the field the way he is. But that's part of your job, is to protect your franchise's future.
100%. Let's jump into the first segment here. It's called I'm on the Edge, and basically you are situated on a fantasy ledge with these players, and it's our job as, the 3 guys who aren't going to pick one of these players. It's our job to talk you off that ledge or give you a friendly push off so you can just jump and crash into the abyss. So we're going to do our best to pick a side, and maybe to start this exercise, we put the player's name up there and we say, I'll talk you off or I'll give you a push. And that gives us some direction as a group as to maybe where the conversation should go. Who do you want us to start?
So that's a good question. We'll start at tight end. It's a pretty messy landscape at tight end. And a guy that's been in the hot seat ever since pretty much week 1, when everyone was touting him as as a top tier tight end.
Top 5.
That's OJ Howard. That Mark is wearing the jersey.
It is.
Mark is a Bucs fan through and through. We want to know, do you push OJ off the ledge, or do you take him back on your team and start him in a week where tight end's tough right now?
I mean, I love OJ. I think he is a great player, but right now, comparing his stats after 5 weeks to where he was at this point last season is not even something you want to look at. He's getting half the amount of targets. He's doing good things with those targets, but just he's got half of everything he had at this point last year. And had he not got that ankle injury, he would have, finished easily in the top 5, possibly top 3 of tight ends last year at the rate he started. But as it stands right now, with Bruce Arians at the helm, he just he doesn't seem like he's that valuable of a player in that offense. And then, given that they have Cameron Brate on that offense as well, it seems a bit like Bruce Arians doesn't quite know what to do with them. So I think as an organization, if he's not going to use them, he could get top dollar from a team that needs a tight end like that. Because, OJ Howard shouldn't be used as a blocking tight end, especially on a team that doesn't have the kind of running game that would necessitate 2 tight ends, let alone 1 tight end like OJ Howard. So for me, he's a push-off. He has been a total dud this year. So one of the biggest disappointments of the year, in my opinion.
Yep. Bye, Felicia. There's only one way I like OJ, and that's with pulp. And so I'm out on this OJ Howard.
Very nice.
I've seen enough. If I have him, I've wasted 5 weeks of my time, of hope, of any, I'm growing gray hair at 30, and I can't afford OJ Howard to, contribute to that mess. So listen, I'm out. I'm okay if I miss out on OJ Howard. I'm pushing him off the ledge.
I'll chime
anyone
in
that
on
rosters him.
This, as he is a tight end, I almost equate him this season, and I do have him in one league, to back when you thought you would buy Rob Gronkowski at a good price, and then every week you have to start him, you say, because of his talent level. But then when the injuries were so bad, he'd lay a dud. I find with Howard, it's the same thing. It's so hard to bench him, but he's losing me week after week. And I think I'll push him off the ledge with you, Mackie.
Back to the real quick sidebar. Back to the whole thing about OJ Howard being used as a blocking tight end when they don't really have a run game. What is with the run game? Like 1 week it's Ronald Jones and he does it in convincing fashion, and then you see the next game you're all ready to start Ronald Jones and be confident in him in his role, and then Peyton Barber gets the first 2 series of carries.
I don't understand.
What is going on?
I tweeted it out.
Can I have any clarity, please?
It's like, oh, I guess this week is a Peyton Barber game, like face plant. Like, I don't know what you do. It's terrible.
I think
There's nothing. You just don't play either of them, or you play them both and you eat it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like I'm out on that.
we talked
situation
about
too.
Peyton Barber a bit in last week's episode, and to have a guy that is almost purely touchdown upside on a team that you never really know if they're going to go 3 and out or if they're going to have 4 consecutive touchdown scoring drives. It's such an unpredictable team in a competitive division. You don't really know what to do with either one of those guys,
Right.
so you can't play either one of them, I don't think.
No, and that's
No.
the thing. We've talked about it before, Mac, in length. Touchdowns are the most unpredictable thing in fantasy sports.
You can't predict
You can
them.
look at targets and look at trends and look at yards, but if all you have to do is predict touchdowns, it's ridiculous. It's so hard. So, speaking of unpredictable,
Yeah,
and one
agreed.
of Scott's favorite players in the NFL. I can't wait to buy you his jersey, Scott. That's Delaney Walker. If
We're
you
doing it.
started
Oh, man.
Delaney Walker these past couple weeks, you have really struggled. So, Scott, as the resident Walker apologist, what do you do with him at this point? Do you just ship him off and go to the waiver wire, get a Gerald Everett or one of the Texans tight ends, or Chris Herndon? I know he's out, possibly out with a hamstring injury, but what do you do with a guy like Walker?
Well, the short answer to that is I think you put him in hibernation if you have the luxury on your roster. Yes, he started off really well, really fast, 20 points out of the gate, dropped down to 6, then went with 10, then in the negatives and 1.5. That's not what we're hoping for. Things probably aren't going to get better this week against that Denver defense. So if you're slotting him in there, you're probably screwed again. But what I'll say is the rest of the schedule for Tennessee, the defenses are not very imposing. You've got the LA Chargers, then Tampa, Carolina, KC, and then after the bye, you've got Jacksonville, Indy, Oakland, Houston, and the Saints. So then Houston again. I mean, you could do a lot worse with the schedule. So I'm not willing to give up on him just
Agreed.
yet. What I think is you need to get a little creative for this next week against Denver and certainly look at other options, but I think he has a very favorable second half schedule here, and he's a very talented vet, and I could see him swinging it back around. But yeah, it's not looking great right now, and I don't forecast this week to get any better. So you got to start looking at streaming until you have faith in him. But I don't think you're going to get much for him. I wouldn't advise dropping him.
For me, the whole thing with any Titan receiver right now is to bet on them is to bet on Marcus Mariota. And it's not a bet that I'm willing to make. And Marcus Mariota has been great for fantasy. Don't get that twisted. The way Marcus Mariota has been relevant for fantasy has been with his legs, and it hasn't been with his arm. And we did see Delaney Walker splash week 1, and that was the perfect time to sell and get off this sinking ship. Scott, I'm sorry, but enough is enough. The guy's 35. Let's let it go.
I'm not going to argue with the fact if you can get decent value for him, it's probably better to pull the trigger.
No,
but you're probably not going to get much.
That's over. No,
Yeah.
That's done. Jason Witten, are you talking them off the ledge, or are you pushing that fantasy owner that has Jason Witten?
I'm pushing that guy off the ledge.
I don't see him getting better
I'm
as
pushing
the
you to the
season
waiver wire.
progresses, to be honest. If anything, he's very much in the Delaney Walker category.
For me, the whole get right game. Yeah, the whole get right game for me with Jason Witten was against Miami. I thought, hey, plug and play. Jason Witten's like a potential start of the week, like really sexy play off the waiver wire, and he had like 3 fantasy points in the best, most juicy matchup possible. Couldn't get it done. So, negative.
Yeah, and speaking of old
Look out
men,
below.
Greg Olson has let your fantasy teams
This is-
down in consecutive weeks now. But I'm going to say with him, of all people, keep him talk him off the ledge. And because right now it's so tough,
I would say
it's so tough right now for tight ends. At least he presents a little bit of upside. I think with Kyle Allen, and even their schedule gets better. This week they play Tampa Bay. You can plug and play him. I saw in a lot of leagues he was dropped for Gerald Everett. So I'm fully content and happy plugging in Greg Olsen this week and just riding him for this week until his bye. And then you could drop him on bye week. Don't worry about keeping him over bye.
Yeah,
Agreed.
hard to argue with. I think out of all those vets we just mentioned, I do think Greg Olsen has the most week-to-week upside.
Yeah, ironically enough, it almost looks
Yes.
like O.J. Howard is the closest to retirement at all of these four.
Asking for a friend here. If you were to own Juju Smith-Schuster or Odell Beckham Jr.,
Push him off
Guys,
the ledge. Push
give
him
that-
off.
give
Get
that-
outta here.
Kick them both. Leonidas those two right into the pit.
if you're pushing me, just make sure I go head first. I'm not trying to do this any longer.
So
But really, what do we do with both of
They're
these
not a-
players? Juju had a good week, don't get me wrong, but now they're onto their third string quarterback.
yeah. And Baker put up a 0 after playing almost the entire game.
Depending on your scoring format, he could have been negative.
With that fumble for the punt return. So, I mean, neither are to push off the ledge. They're not pushing off until the waiver wire, obviously. We all know that. But they still hold a lot of name value. And people are still on that buy low mentality. And if you could get a couple studs, quote-unquote studs, that were used a first round or early second round draft capital, I think you can move these guys and get maybe safer options without backup quarterbacks and with some week-to-week upside. If it's a wide receiver, like a guy like Robert Woods that has underperformed, where a lot of people had him leading that Rams offense. If you're looking at running back, maybe a Kerryon Johnson, Joe Mixon that has underperformed, a guy that's still a stud that can get some guaranteed volume, maybe like a Mark Ingram guy. But I'm also fine rolling with these guys. I think they do present upside, and they both could finish as maybe closer to top 15 to top 20 wide receivers. You didn't draft them at that, but I don't think either of them are going to finish much worse than that.
I mean,
No,
it's
I
funny.
agree.
Their value was both contested, like as far as where you would place them. They were all very close as far as hype before the season started, and no one would have expected such a drop off. But coincidentally, they have ended up in the same discussion as far as bust candidates for this point in the season, right? So one of the biggest glory to blunder stories that you could ever imagine in the NFL.
Glory to blunder. That is, I mean, we could have gone rags to riches there. We could have gone
Glory to
stud
blunder,
to
the
dud,
Antonio
but
Brown story.
wow, glory to blunder. There we go. A Mark Poole
There you have it.
special. You're welcome. Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson. We've got Tyreek Hill coming back. You'd have to think that these guys would fall behind Sammy Watkins now. What do we do, guys, with these guys? Are we pushing them to the waiver wire, or are we hanging on?
There is word that Sammy Watkins is not feeling great this week after the Sunday nighter. That being said, I still think I'm ready to hold Hardman back and keep him from the ledge. I think he's still going to be a good part of this offense. He's just so fast, so quick, so talented. If Watkins and Hill are both out there, there's not going to be many scraps to go around. But I do think that passing offense, if Mahomes is healthy and out there, then I do think that offense.
Oh, he'll be fine.
I think
fine.
that offense can support three wide receivers.
I think they can too. To be quite honest, I think both of them are worth stashing. It's just going to be hard to now have faith in the volume because Tyreek's going to get all the work. And you just never know which guy is going to be on the field. And that'll just be dependent on Andy Reid and his preference that week. So it might just be very hard to predict what week is going to be a Hardman or a Robinson week. But I'm okay with talking you off the ledge and having you keep them, but I don't love their value projecting forward. Robbie Anderson from the Jets. Yeah. If you own him right now, what do you do?
I got this question earlier this week from a good friend, and he was in between dropping Robbie Anderson. I can't recall who else, but I said to hold on to Robbie, walk him off the ledge, say there's brighter days ahead. Right now, Sam Darnold is scheduled to play, and I don't really care how he plays this week against Dallas. Honestly, I don't care. They play New England, Jacksonville, but they have Miami twice, the Giants, and Washington to finish the season. So the Jets do have some upside, and Robbie Anderson was drafted as one of the favorite flyers from a lot of fantasy analysts, including Mike, the fantasy hitman, right? And for good reason. He presents a lot of upside, and I know he hasn't. You don't feel comfortable starting him the next 2-3 weeks, but I still think he's a hold. He still presents upside. Crowder is still in that neighborhood where he will get targets. I just think Robbie could be that elite player. He's very similar to a Stephon Diggs right now. You can't really drop him. You can't put. I wouldn't personally put him on the waiver wire, and I think he could be late in the season a really good wide receiver 3 that you pretty much got for nothing right now.
If you have Dante Pettis, please do us all a favor and just jump. That's where we're going to leave that one. Dante Pettis, man, like just in the limited work he's had, he catches that ball off a slant. Didn't catch it, but gets targeted off a slant, has a huge step on his defender, and could have taken it to the house, and he's already looking upfield and drops it. No one even close to him. I just think, man, if you've been holding on to Dante Pettis, just release him to where he belongs.
So, Marky, we talked about the Buccaneers backfield, and we'll talk about them again. It's a committee backfield. If you had Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones at the edge of a ledge, would you push them right off, or would you talk to at least one of them?
Oh, man. It's funny. I think a couple of weeks ago, Jones had about the best performance out of a Tampa Bay running back that I have seen in the last few years, probably, and that was against the Rams at the Coliseum. But the odds of that happening again, to me, just seem astronomical, and that team is just struggling to figure out their whole persona right now. So I think if you hold on to one, it's Jones, because Barber's upside is only that touchdown. And it's like you said, though, that's not enough for me to hang on to someone like him. Ronald Jones, on the other hand, at least showed some prowess in like some screenplays. And, if he gets the right kind of blocking, which there are lots of great blockers on Tampa, I think Ronald Jones has the bigger upside here, and at least, he's getting the looks before Peyton Barber is. So, I mean, neither one of these guys are really anything special to me at all, but Ronald Jones can come down off the ledge. I don't care what Peyton Barber does.
How many touchdowns he falls in? How many end zones he falls into?
Yeah, he'll finish the year with probably like 7, maybe 8 touchdowns. But I think he's going to have half the amount of yards that Jones does at most.
And the tough thing with these players are they do present some upside because they're in offenses that are quality. And that's where it's tough, because you see the upside. And similar with this next guy, Duke Johnson. Scotty, you've got him in a place, our big money league, our big 16-team league. You're probably starting him this week, but you don't feel great about it. What do you do with a guy like Duke?
I mean, Duke's a hard guy to figure out, because he does provide that, I'd like to call it a floor of, he's going to usually get at least, 2 to 5 targets out of the backfield. So even with Carlos Hyde there, it hasn't been the worst experience in the world, but owning him, but it has not been good. Even when he was the lead back, when Carlos Hyde was supposed to be kind of the complementary back to Duke, he just didn't look like your bell cow fantasy winning back. That being said, he has looked a bit better the past few weeks. He's looked more elusive. What I am concerned about is as long as Kiki's healthy, he seems to be he's getting a lot of those underneath passes, and that is what makes this a lot harder. One thing he does have going for him is his schedule coming up. This week he's facing Kansas City's defense. No one's scared of that. Then we go to go to Indy. Then we've got Oakland. Then we go to Jacksonville. I'd say this is kind of the time. This is the make or break it for me. Over the next 4 weeks, if he can't get a relevant fantasy day against these defenses, it's hard to say, but I'm probably going to be pushing him right off that ledge, and I paid a lot of money for him.
The thing that I have liked to see out of that offense is Deshaun Watson. His style is not to check it down. He likes to either extend the play with his legs or bomb it deep. And it's taken a little bit of coaching and adjustments for him to actually find that little dump off pass or little shovel pass to Duke Johnson. But over the weeks, those opportunities have increased for Duke. So I do like to see that for him.
I do feel like he's trending in the right direction because I do think they tried to parade him out as, he will be our running back. They kept saying it all, preseason. He's the lead back. I don't think he'll ever be. Right, I don't think he'll ever be a lead back, and that's okay. They're the Chris Thompsons of the world who just excel as these pass-catching running backs that complement real, bell cow backs. But to be fantasy relevant, like you said, they have to really figure out how to use them, and I do think they are working on figuring out a way to get him more involved in the offense. So I think he's trending in the right direction. These next 4 weeks will absolutely tell us.
And the Texans do run a decent amount of heavy personnel, either 12 or 22, meaning 1 running back, 2 tight end, or 2 running back, 2 tight end, which if you listen to Warren Sharp, one of the biggest betting gurus in the industry, he actually has found in his metrics that passing out of heavy sets actually has a bigger success rate for pass catchers, and that one of those pass catchers can be the running back. So utilizing the 2 tight end set that they have there in Houston is really beneficial when they do use it. They have a pretty good success rate.
Going into this week, though, this is going to be another test where right now Carlos Hyde is on a big high, and they're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are just putting up bad numbers straight up, trying to protect the run. So I think Carlos Hyde is going to shine this week once again, just because I think he's a little better on the rush than Duke Johnson. So I don't know, it's going to be contested. So I think that position belongs to Hyde right now, and he's probably going to get a good 15 touches, I'm going to say, where Duke Johnson is going to be, like you said, more reliable on that pass than anything else.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear right now that Duke Johnson is always going to be he's never going to lead the backfield in touches. So he has to really just make it happen with what he gets.
Last guy here. You see this man out on the edge, and you have a chance to either pull him in and call him your own, or give him a push and say, see you later. Baker Mayfield.
Well, you might find his body in the rocks right now because a lot of people have already pushed him off that ledge. So are you rescuing him? Are you picking him up? And I actually did pick him up in a league where I'm running out a streaming quarterback. I'm not going to play Baker. He looks like a fire dancer right now. His feet are on fire, and he's dancing on the coals in the backfield. But I'm going to stash him just in case that he turns it around and that offense figures it out.
Name value alone, I will roster him. I'll find space. I'll wait for him to have that game, and then he's a tradable asset. But, I mean, all things considered, Baker Mayfield needs some protection. And the offensive line has been terrible. And he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, if not the worst, under pressure. I believe he's only completed 1 pass under pressure so far this year.
Yeah.
So,
ooh,
yeah, really bad. Not good.
Where are we on to next, fellas?
let's jump into our committee backfields to either avoid or target. Let's not overanalyze, but let's give a avoid or target ranking for each of these backfields. And if we are targeting, which one of the backfield are we saying, yes, I'd like a piece of it, and it is with you. So we're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers, one of the teams that we saw most recently. Between the guys in this backfield, are we avoiding or targeting?
I'm going to target them, and I'm going to target Tevin Coleman.
I am also targeting Tevin Coleman. I'm actually glad that I had him in several leagues on my bench and now get a startable asset back.
Yes, I was totally giddy when he got that scamper into the end zone. I loved it. And you know what? That run by Matt Breida was super impressive too. Did you see that guy's legs turning? Like, holy smokes. I was saying it before this season started. There is insane speed in that backfield between Breida and Coleman. And right now, so many pieces on that offense are clicking. It is, it's... we were wondering why this team got so good or how they were going to get so good and maintain this undefeated record. But here we have it.
Boom.
Yeah, I'm going to...
Scott, are you in on the Tevin Coleman train, or are you avoiding?
I'm going to agree. How do you not try to get a piece of the San Francisco offense right now? It's firing on all cylinders, and they're doing it almost exclusively through their run game right now. Just to the pass comes afterwards.
Agreed.
So, I'll go with Freeman.
Seattle Seahawks. Do we want to avoid or target this backfield? The Seattle Seahawks.
Spoiler
Tevin
alert
Coleman.
for later. Yes, sorry.
Seattle.
I didn't catch that.
I'll target Seattle as well. I'll target Carson. That's an easy one. I don't think it gets to be more of a committee. I think it's still good.
I think Landon just spoke for the whole SMS crew there. Denver Broncos. Do we want to target or avoid this backfield?
As I said earlier, on this one, I'm tempted to take a run at Royce Freeman right now.
Why?
I do.
Interesting.
Well, because Philip Lindsay clearly is the sexy pick right here.
Has been
He's
great.
Fantastic. And as I am in a league where I'm rolling out Duke Johnson, I'm looking at committees where people might be willing to actually part with some players because of all the attention to Philip Lindsay. I have a feeling that Freeman, by the end of this season, may be a better option than Duke Johnson for me, and I do think he's going to emerge strong in this backfield. So I'm actually looking at targeting him right now. So
is that a 1-for-1 trade? Would you trade Duke for Freeman right now?
I'm thinking about it, and right now, let me tell you, it's not a foregone conclusion that people are willing to trade me Freeman for Duke, because I've tried.
Scott, this is why you are 0-5 in the listener league.
Yes, because Antonio Brown broke his brain.
I know. I'm just
Marky, the Philadelphia backfield. Is this something you're going to target or avoid at this point? Howard looks really good. He's getting those touchdowns. Miles Sanders was hyped all off season. What do you do with this backfield?
Again, I think this is going to be another juicy opportunity this weekend for those guys to have a good performance. I like Miles Sanders a lot, but he hasn't been getting into that end zone. I don't like Jordan Howard, and he is getting into that end zone. So yes, I am going to target it just because I think there's more weapons on that team than they even know what to do with, and eventually for that backfield, the touchdowns are going to come.
Cool.
And that's the reason why I'm out on this backfield, is because there are too many mouths to feed. There are too many weapons. We've seen the Miles Sanders performance. We've seen the Jordan Howard performance. And to start the year, we saw a little bit too much Darren Sproles. So I don't want to play the same game that we play with the New England Patriots. I don't want to play running back carousel game every single week. I want to know who's going to get the rock on a consistent basis. Right now, I'm just not sure, especially with Jordan Howard's recent performance. So I think for right now, I am avoiding the Philadelphia backfield. Now, I think that you can trade Jordan Howard for a nice, shiny piece, but I'm going to avoid.
Some people are targeting Jordan Howard, and I I don't blame them for that, I guess, but
I don't love that.
I'm avoiding him. So
I don't love it.
last backfield, more of a hype backfield. They both produced in previous seasons. This is the LA Chargers. Eckler was on fire to start the season and looked like a early candidate for fantasy MVP. Now we have Melvin Gordon in the mix that came off his holdout. What do you do with this backfield? You could probably buy both of them because there's so much uncertainty around who's going to get the rock. So, Scotty, we'll flip it to you. Are you going to buy either of these guys, or are you just going to avoid it because the cost is probably going to be too high?
I'll probably avoid it. If if you're holding Melvin Gordon, great. You're hoping he comes back the way he is. I think Eckler's going to have a steep decline. I just don't see how you bring in a guy like Melvin Gordon and he doesn't. So I'm avoiding it because you're really playing high stakes poker with either way with a guy coming in this late in the season.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Who finishes better this week, Eckler or Gordon?
Eckler.
I'm going to say Gordon.
Ooh.
Right.
Right now in our rankings, I'm pretty sure I've got Eckler higher. So more week of Eckler,
I think
and then
we all know
we'll
that's
see.
going to switch at some point. It's just when.
It will switch, and this is again a good buy low opportunity for Jordan Howard, especially if he does finish worse than Eckler. I think it's as a guy that still believes in Gordon, like myself. I'm hoping. I don't have him anywhere, just to be forewarned, but I buy him after next week if he doesn't blow up. So I'm still hoping for a down week from Gordon.
Yeah, that's how I see it playing out too, probably.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Before we go, let's jump into starts of the week here.
So I'll start here. I've got a running back in Atlanta, and that is going to be Devonta Freeman. They play Arizona this week. It should be a juicy matchup. Their O-line is suffering. It's not good, but he is getting targets out of the backfield. He's gotten consistency over 11 attempts since week 2, and he's been between 5 and 11 targets since that same time frame. So I think he should be a safe option, especially in PPR leagues. And this week against Arizona, it should be a fun game and a shootout to watch. So fire up your Devonta Freemans, and let's get it.
It's a solid pick. For my start of the week, I'm going with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Gardner Minshew. He's facing the New Orleans Saints, and after his performance last week against Carolina, where he had over 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, the New Orleans secondary is not elite, let's put it that way, and I think it's a prime opportunity. I think Jacksonville will lose, but I think that Minshew will be chasing that victory, and doing so, I think he'll have a very strong fantasy day on a way to an inevitable loss.
Nice.
Go ahead,
All right,
Mark.
I am going to be taking a dude who at first was trotting out of the gate. He built up his speed to a canter, and you could say he's Michael full-blown Gallup.
Wow.
He is in his 3
wordplay.
appearances so far. He is just short of 50 fantasy points on the season. He is a very sure-handed target. He's a big guy, and it just seems like he has great chemistry with Dak forming already. So I'm going to take him for going against this New York Jets team who, at first, they weren't in full-blown tank mode, but now they seem to be kind of intertwined in this race between Miami and Washington on who can be the worst team in the NFL. But at first it wasn't deliberately. So we'll see if they still have anything left to give if they do want to win NFL games. But if they do want to, it's not going to be against the Cowboys. So Gallup all the way. He's only a 46% start, by the way. But get him in your lineups. He is a tremendous play.
Wild. I'm going to go with the wide receiver train as well. I'm going to stick with a guy who plays a team that's been torched the last couple weeks, giving up a lot of points to wide receiver. It's going to be Curtis Samuel of the Carolina Panthers.
I like it.
Him and DJ Moore have been great together so far. Kyle Allen continues to be very, very serviceable. And when you look at the Bucs and how much they've given up to wide receivers, I mean, yes, they did beat Kansas City. Not Kansas City. They beat the LA Rams a couple weeks ago, put up 55 points, but also allowed 40. And Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods had days. So did Gerald Everett against this defense. I think if they can, so can Curtis Samuel. I'm going to start him with full confidence.
I like it.
Beautiful.
Is that it for today's episode? All right, guys. Well, have a good weekend. And shout out to the SMS crew on Patreon. Get us on Twitter as well at fantasy or SMS_fantasy. That's the same on Instagram. So, Marky, Scotty, I think Mac just left us, but anything else you got to say?
Yeah, I think that's going to be it for the app today, boys. And you know what? Let's just keep this momentum going, because like we're 6 weeks in, and I know a lot of people are probably looking at their phones and saying, man, my team is just done. I got to fire sale these guys, or else, this would have been a pointless season. But never say that. Keep listening, keep tuning in, and stay active on that waiver wire. Stay active on your trade block. You never know who you can pick up or who you can take advantage of. So just never give up. Keep fighting hard.
This is the time where the winners are really made, because this is where the best roster wire pickups come from. So keep your head up. Keep listening to SMS. Have a great week 6, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy. Support this independent podcast at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Snap.